Hi, and welcome back to another section of our SQL database application tutorial. I think this is part 8, and we are learning how to use SQL databases. So here's the index of everything that we've learned so far. You can see that we've created tables, and we've created a simple app that can read and insert records. In this video, we are going to talk about foreign keys. You're going to learn how to use a new tool that will create links between tables. So we will have an albums table and then another table in our database for each of the songs. We'll call it our tracks table. And then the relationship between them is very important. And so we'll learn how to use the tool called mySQL workbench. So a lot of concepts here about SQL databases that we're going to explore right now. Here's the rest of the sequence that we're going to learn. So we're about halfway through, and by the time you're done, you will become a SQL expert, we might say. My name is Shad Sluter, and I teach software development at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm glad you've joined us. So many of the students that I've taught in the past are now employed very successfully as software developers. So I'm inviting you to come along and learn some of the same things that we do in class. In this particular course, SQL databases, you use this in almost all types of software development. So this is an essential part of your education. So make sure you check out the website at studycoding.org, where you can see all of the courses that I've been teaching in the past few years. So here's a preview of what we're going to do before the end of the video. You can see on the screen that I have a new tool up. This is called mySQL workbench. And a workbench tool is used to design databases. So by the time you're finished, you're going to have not only the albums table that you see here, but this link to another table called the tracks table. And so this contains all of the songs that each album has, and you can see there's a link between the two called a foreign key. And so all these concepts are what we're going to learn right now. So if you haven't installed this tool yet, let's go and find it. So I'm Googling mySQL workbench install. So let's see what we got here for one of the links. And this is the one you want here. So mySQL workbench, download now, and then you're going to have the choice of which platform you want to install. So I'm using Windows. You might have something else, but go ahead and choose the download and go ahead and run the setup. And when you're finished, you will have the application that you see on my computer. So I've got the application installed. I'm just going to click the little dolphin icon and run it. So you can see the first screen is Welcome to my SQL workbench. Now I'm going to remove this item here because you don't have that yet. So let's see, delete the connection and click delete. So the first thing you do when you launch this is try to connect your mySQL workbench to a server. Now you can see in the background that I have the MAMP server running, and I have the green dots indicating that the two servers are active. So the Apache server, which honestly we are not using, but it's automatically included in this package. MySQL server is also running. So the tool, mySQL workbench, will work with any type of MySQL server. So whether you're installing MAMP or WAMP or USB web server, or you just installed MySQL as a standalone product, they will all be able to connect using mySQL workbench. So you might have a similar setup that I do, but hopefully something that is as close as possible so that the tutorial makes sense to you. All right, so let's see how we can make this work. So as you recall, the server here has a username and password. So root is the username and root is the password for this particular instance of MySQL. So that's important to be able to connect. Now I'm going to just minimize this, and now we're going to go into mySQL workbench. So now down here in the section where the MySQL connections are listed, I'm going to click the plus sign, and this will add a new connection. Now if you don't find that plus sign, you can probably find it over here under the databases menu, but I'm just going to go with this plus sign. So I'm going to set up a connection. So the name of the server is localhost, so that's a great name for the connection. Down below here is the IP address of my server, so I'm going to type in localhost again. You could leave it as 127.0.0.1, but localhost is synonymous. Then the port number is 3306, so that's the default port, and if you want to check to see if you're running on that port, you go to your MAMP server, go to the MAMP menu, pick Preferences, choose Ports, and you'll see the port number listed here. So this is 3306. So I'm just going to cancel this and minimize MAMP. So I'm just verifying that 3306 is the correct number, and it likely is on your computer too. Now I'm going to test the connection, and it says it was successful. So if this is not successful, check your passwords, check to see if you've got the right ports and everything. Let's click OK and choose OK again. So now I've added a new connection down here. So I don't have to go through and set up the connection again. The next time I run this application, I can just double click on this gray box, which I'm going to do now. So I've double clicked, and hopefully I've connected. Now you can see on the left side here I have two tables. I have a music table and a music 2 table. If you don't see that, you can switch, because you might have administration on this tab, and then what I want to select is schemas. So the schemas are the database names. So let's take a look inside of here. So music 2 is the application that we've been working on, so I'm going to expand this, choose tables, and you can see that there's an albums table. So if I were to expand that further, you can see the column names, and then you're going to see more details about our design. So we have ID, the title, the artist, the year, the image, and the description. So those are all the items that we set up in the PHP admin page. And so you can see the same kinds of materials here, but mySQL workbench will do more administration tasks in an easier way than the previous admin screen that we've been using up until now. So what I want to do is add a second table and make a foreign key. So just to see where we're going, I'm going to collapse music 2, and I'm going to show you what music looks like, because I created this application earlier just to prepare for this tutorial. So to show you how this works, I'm going to go to database. You won't be able to do this yet, so just watch. I'm going to choose reverse engineer, and I'm going to click next, and then I'm going to log in and then click OK. Now it says you've connected. Let's go through the steps here. So next, and it says which one of the schemas would you like to connect to. So music 2 is the one we're currently using. I'm going to take that one off, and I'll show you the one that I created on earlier tutorials. So music is what I'm after. Choose next. It says so far so good with green check marks. Next again. It says you're going to import 2 tables and execute. And this time when I'm done, something happened in the background. I click next, and then finally I click finish. And here we are. So now you can see the results of what we're trying to get to. So I have 2 tables. I have an albums table and a tracks table. So that's where we're going. Now let's back up and see if we can get to this point. So I'm going to close these tabs at the top of the screen and don't save whatever's there, and we're back. So I want to open up the music 2 database. So let's try this again. This time you work with me, all right? So click on database. Choose reverse engineer, and then we're going to choose next. We're going to choose next. We're going to select music 2, choose next, execute, and next, and finally finish. Okay, so all of that work gets us to this diagram. So what we're looking right now at is a diagram called an EER diagram. This is the design of your database. You can see it has one table, and it shows you all the column names in it. Now we're going to add a new table and then resynchronize our database to this diagram. So there's a couple of steps involved here, and you have to do it exactly right, or it will give you an error. So first of all, we're going to create a table. So over here in this column here, you can see that there is an icon that says place a new table. So I'm going to click it and then click out here, and I got table 1. So table 1 doesn't have anything in it, of course. It looks kind of like a title only. Let's double click it. So when I double click it, I get another bunch of things that I can configure. The first thing is I'm going to give it a name. So let's call this thing tracks and press enter. Now what are we going to have in the tracks table? Let's go down to the columns. So the first thing you usually do is you set up an ID and leave it as an integer. We're going to check auto increment as our option. The next item down. So the next item down, I'm going to call it track title. And so I'll use an underscore character here. You don't have to use underscore. You can just shove them all together into a single word if you like. But I would recommend that you do not use spaces in any of your column names. So this is going to be a varchar type of column. And since the title of the album is probably longer than 45 letters, let's set it to something bigger. I'll choose 100 characters. So let's add some other items. So after the title, let's put in another column and we'll call it number. So this is the track number, like if it's track number 1 on the album. So it's an integer. So usually there's about 8 to 10 tracks per album. So we'll see some number between 1 and 10. The next item down that we're going to put is a string. So this is video underscore URL. So this will be a YouTube link so we can actually play the video. So a number of characters that we're going to need here is what, maybe 200 or so? How long is a URL for a YouTube video? I'm not quite sure. So 200 is a safe number. Let's add a lyrics column. So the lyrics will be all the words to the song. And for some reason we might want to print that to the screen. So a lyrics could be really long. So look at all of the options for our different data types. So there's a lot of different options for choosing a text field. I'm going to choose the one that has text and parentheses, so I can specify that it has some number of items. Let's say 2,000. Is that enough letters for a song? I think it might work. So we'll use text. And then that's the last one we're going to put. So it looks to me like I have a couple of extra columns here that I didn't mean to do. So let's go and select the item that was accidentally put in there. I'm going to right click on it and choose delete, and then let's do the last one as well. And so now we're down to just a few different columns here. Okay, so all of this here is, I think, correct. So I can close this tab and you can see the changes occur here. Now this is not quite finished. We're missing the link between these two columns or between these two tables. So let's go look at these items here. So these are different links. If I want to have a relationship, I can have a one-to-one relationship or a one-to-many. Here's another kind of one-to-one and another kind of one-to-many. A many-to-many relationship. So complex relationships can be modeled here in mySQL workbench. The one I'm looking for is this one that says it's got a dotted line on it. Now I always do this backwards, so I might have to delete my links, but I'm going to try it anyway. So I'm going to click once here. Now, I'm not holding the button down, I just clicked once. Now I'm going to go click a table. So let's try this one, and then I click this table. And it creates a link between them, and sure enough, it's backwards. So look at the little marks at the end of the row, and this is why I know it's backwards. This says that on the side here is a triple link. It looks like a bird's foot. And the other side has a single link. So that means that for every one track, there are many albums. So that's backwards because the opposite is true. Each album has many tracks, and each track belongs exactly to one album. So I messed up. So I did that on purpose, actually, because I wanted to show how to delete an item, because it's so oftenly done incorrectly. So I'm selecting the line there, and I'm pressing delete on the keyboard. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try right-click and choose delete then. And it says, you want to delete this relationship? And I say delete. And it's gone. Let's try it the other way. So I'm going to click here again. This time I'm clicking on the track and then back to the album. And as you can see now, the relationship is the opposite direction. So we have a single album matches with many tracks. And then here, there's a new item. It is it says at the bottom, albums ID. So this is the foreign key. The foreign key says we're going to store a number in the table that tells us which album we belong to. So each album has an ID number, and each track has an associated album to go with it. Okay, so that is our model. Now we're going to try to synchronize this to our database. Now when we do this synchronization, we're going to encounter an error. And I'm going to leave the error on the screen because it's so common, and so we'll fix that up. So the first time we do this, it will not work. But here's the attempt. So if I want to resynchronize my database, I click here, and I can choose two things. I can choose forward engineer, which will erase my current database and replace it with a model on the screen, or I can try synchronize model. Now where is that? So synchronize down here. So this is the one that I prefer. So let's try synchronize. Now we're going to see the same choices here. We have a server number and then a password. So we have not updated the database yet. This is the process of changing the model in our database. Let's see, click next. Now I'm not going to do any of these checks here, so click next again. It says make sure that you connect, so I type in the word root for my password. Click OK. It says that was correct. Let's go to next again. Now it says which database are you trying to synchronize? And so I am using Music 2. Let's click next again. And it says it's connected. Let's click next. And now you can see a preview of what's going to change. So the albums and tracks tables are currently in the design that I just drew. We're going to synchronize it with the database, which has an existing albums table. And then the second item is a new table. So when I select one of these, you can see that there is a statement below. So this is the SQL statement that is going to be executed. If you wanted to use the command prompt and type all of this out, you could. You'd have to know every single type of exception and option to be able to type this correctly, which is why I always use mySQL workbench, because honestly, I can't remember all of these things very well. So this isn't going to work, but we're going to try it anyway. So let's click next, and it gives us the preview. So preview the changes. So it's going to say I'm going to create a table. The table is going to be called tracks. It's going to be in the Music 2 database. It's going to have all of these columns, and then it's going to have some primary keys going on here. And this problem right here, the word visible, is going to cause our problem to halt. It's not going to work. And I'll show you why. So let's execute, log in, and you can see we have a problem. So this is so common. People Google this all the time to find out why can't I synchronize. It doesn't tell me why. It just says there's a problem. And here's what the problem is. So we're going to close this. So the synchronization failed. Here's what the problem is. We have a version number here. So if I go to Edit and Preferences, and then I select the Modeling mySQL, we're going to have a version number. So this tool is set up to synchronize with mySQL 8. something, 8028. Now, if you already have version 8 on your computer, then you didn't receive any errors. But more than likely you have an older version like I do. So let's go and check out MAMP and see what version we're running. So I click here, choose MAMP, Preferences, and let's go to Server. Does it tell us here? It does. So our database server is running version 5724. So you can see the difference now. Version 8, version 5, it doesn't work. So I have to tell mySQL workbench that this is the version I am targeting, 5724. So I'm going to come back to here and type that in. So I could probably just type in 5.0. So I have to actually set this to version 5.2 perhaps. I just had an error when I tried 5.2.7. So let's try 5.2. And now I'm ready to synchronize the model. So the two tables are here, and this EER diagram is on the screen. If for some reason you want to save this diagram, you can. You can go to File and Save. And if you lose it, you can bring it back. Anyway, I'm going to go to the synchronize now. So let's choose database, and let's try synchronize the model. And then we're going to log in and try to see what happens. So let's see, put in our password. I'm going to choose next, making sure that Music 2 is selected. Next again, previewing the settings here. So if I click here, you're going to scroll down and see the same thing, except for this index no longer has the word visible in it. That's the change between mySQL 5 and mySQL 8, at least in this one case. So let's click next, and let's preview it if you want. You can see all the commands and then choose execute. This time there are no errors, so I'm feeling better about this. Let's go ahead and choose close. So we have now a foreign key. Now let's go back to our other tool. This is the myAdmin tool from PHP. So I'm going to collapse music and look at music 2. So let's go ahead and click this green arrow or refresh the page, either one. And let's see what comes up now. So I open up the schema called music 2, and now I have two items here. I have albums, and that looks the same as it did before, no change, but now I have tracks. So now I want to insert some items into the tracks table. So I'm going to pick one of the albums that I've already looked at, and I'm choosing Abbey Road. I hope that Wikipedia has a list of the songs here on Abbey Road. Okay, here's one. So Come Together is one of the songs. So I'm going to insert some data here into my table. So I'm going to copy Come Together and then switch back into my PHP admin. So I'm in the tracks table and I'm going to choose Insert, and the track title, I'm going to paste that in. So Come Together is the name. So the number on this thing, it's track number 1 in the album, and now I need a video URL. So the video URL that I'm looking for is on YouTube, of course. So let's play the song here, and you can see that I've got the right one. So this is Come Together. So I'm going to just swipe the URL from the command bar or the address bar here at the top and choose Copy. Let's stop that. And now I'm going to go back and insert it here where it says video URL. So it's just a text string, but it will link us to a video. So how nice is that? Okay, down here, the lyrics. Do I have the lyrics? So I'm looking for the lyrics, so I Google it, and sure enough, here comes a whole bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and copy all of the words that Google gives us, and let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and paste it into the lyrics section. So now I have Come Together, yeah, as my lyrics. And then finally we have a foreign key. So when I choose an album number, it's going to say, I'm going to force you into one of these albums. So you can see the bottom group here has the number of the album listed first. So 3 in Abbey Road. The top group is reversed, so Abbey Road 3 is the order. You can pick either one of these, and they'll both work. So I'm going to choose 3 and choose Go. Now, this insert command was successful. You can see that there was one row inserted, and then it gives me the SQL statement that was done here. So all of this here is what I didn't have to type. It did it for me. But you can see the statement and how the work goes. So it's insert into the tracks table. It lists all of the column names and then the values. So you notice the null value for ID is listed, so that's auto increment. The rest of the stuff is all things that we just entered in the form. So Come Together, 1, the URL, and everything else. So that is how to insert. Let's go ahead and browse the table, and you can see that we have one item, Come Together. So here's your homework. I need you to put in 2 or 3 different tracks for each of the albums in your collection. So use the same process that I did. Go looking on Wikipedia or wherever else you can find the resources, and especially make sure that you get the video URL from something on YouTube. And then we're ready to go on to the next step. In the next part of the video, we're going to use table joins. So we created a foreign key, and now the next step is to select items using that foreign key to be able to use in our application. So we're moving ahead, and you're getting smarter every day with SQL. See you in the next video.